Hi people, so this collection gained some notoriety because of its titles. Well, whatever. You can look it up on the IMDb, it has its own separate list. So it contains 50 films, so to say, and well, the basic idea for this collection is to not just scratch the bottom of the barrel, but pick up what's splat under it. So these won't be good quality movies, but that doesn't mean they can't have a good quality ratio compared to their spendings. Unfortunately, of course, you can't know all the budgets, but like a third of it is right on IMDb or somewhere. IMDb is pretty trustable and easily accessible source for this kind of information. Although sometimes you have to look up other sources. Wikipedia sometimes has more information than IMDb for films, but considering the budget of these films, don't count on it. Only a handful of these have any relevance or accessibility. So they are really what you can expect is recorded on VHS in the 2000s. It doesn't mean though that it doesn't have some higher budget or more professional stuff, although there is one title that I would call explicitly home video. No redeeming quality, no quality whatsoever. It's just homemade stuff for your own friends. So these are, in comparison, if you have a good day, I mean, if it is a good film from this collection, it is somewhere on the Mark Polonia category. So it's, although that person, Mark Polonia and his brother previously, are what I would call semi-professionals who know their equipment, who know what they want, and have some kind of idea about filmmaking. Here, not so much, though I repeated there are some films that achieve TV movie quality or something, or at least a TV series episode quality from the 90s, because the dates of these films are from ranging from the 1990s to the 2007. Some one movie is from the 70s and a couple from the 80s, but mostly these are the range. The 90s movies are mostly straight to VHS. The 2000s are varying, although it is kind of disturbing that in those years, seriously, these products were distributed on any level. Weird. And so these are mostly for the curiosity. What I was expecting when going in these 50 movies, and I really went through it in a breakneck speed. I took out a week just to run through on these 50 movies, is if I find one or two is a great ratio, film that I can enjoy per disc, I'm good. And seriously, I'm good. But and this was achieved in the first 3-5 discs. Disc 4 is horrible. There is no good film, but 5 again has something. But then I don't know what was the reason for picking the films for the collection, or who put them in order, because disc 7, that's, that's a good disc. Everything on it is good, if you ask me. But 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is not good. There are some redeeming qualities, but they, especially for the last 3 discs, you feel that like, we need to achieve 50 discs because that was in the promotion, so just pick anything that comes from free or $100 for the director, or something copyright, or something without copyright. Just put it in there and we are good. Now, genres. You, just by the look of it, and just by the crypt and nightmare and all the words in the titles, you expect it to be horror films. This is true in the sense that these films have serial murderers and vampires and that kind of stuff in it. Satanist cults, yeah. But that doesn't constitute horror in itself for me, so I would expand this into... There are at least a couple of snuff films. No story, only gore, just scene after scene of pulling out intestines. Then there are a couple of exploitation films, which I think are kind of distinct from pure horror. Then they are varying qualities, like all exploitations do, because they have to find their target audience. They are very niche every time. Then there are the porn. I don't know why IMDb refuses any review from the audience to claim, to state this is porn. I will tell one. On disc 2, the third movie, The Bewitching. It is... There is a frame that some witch in some parallel dimension or something goes to Earth and has sex, then has sex, and then has sex, and then another witch comes up to bring her back, so she has sex, then they have sex, and they go back to wherever they came from. That's porn. Yes, they are witches, but where is the horror aside of that? Nowhere, that's where. So, and there are a couple of, one or two, religious movies. I really hate those. I really hate when it tries to sell you this horror, but it's not. It it's preaches gospels. And I really hate those, because you will feel in the names, the narrative, the structure of the film, that all along you will feel that something is wrong, and then you will understand that it's not working from for the normal logic. It works for religious logic, and it's just... I say that the discs are really this kind of format, and each of them have the same graphic on them, and kinda that's the format. So let's go through the highlights, mainly the good. I try to get the good bits, but sometimes the bad too. So this one, first movie, A Candle in the Dark. It's a kind of convoluted vampire story, but the execution is good. Until the very end, where in the movie there is a person, character, Lilith. Uh, avoids the light, avoids mirrors, doesn't go to school. It's a university school. Doesn't go to the lessons. So she is obviously the vampire. But the film goes a twist, and she's the vampire hunter, and it's a bit convoluted. Seriously, the vampires become the relatives of the victims, and they are looking very explicitly going after the murderers in the media and all. But whatever. Uh, in its core, it is working micro budget stuff. I don't really have complaint. I'd say you can watch it. Fine. Then there is The River, The Legend of La Lorna. It's low budget, micro budget stuff, mostly in one location or around it, in a room and on the street before the motel where the room is. It's a nice ghost story of the La Lorna legend, which is some Mexican Latino legend, and the movie is a Latino flick, so it has its unique qualities. You can go watch it, decide whether you like it or not. It's fine. And the fifth movie, serial killer on disc one, is a snuff film. On disc two, Catholic Googles, good. You have tits, you have funny execution. It's so bad it's good. Really, just sit, watch. The crawl space is a so ripoff, and the real problem with it, right at the start, which has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. I know the first kills of the Saw film has nothing to do with it, but they create the mood, and this is the problem with here. Because you see, the film tells you that there is no escape. Then what's the point? Then the fifth Health Highway is a kind of supernatural slasher. It has you as a supernatural slasher, and it has a good twist at the end. And this has a very good production value. Yes, it drags a bit here and there, and it's a half-assed made found footage kind of films, sort of like the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre in its settings. But really, the twist works, the monsters makeup works. It does not drag too much. It has things for going for it. It has good pacing. I say go for it. Disc 4 is a problematic one. I, not necessarily unredeemable, because it has some thing going for it, unique quality, because the whole collection is both for its unique quality. So Hip Hop Locals is unfathomably bad, truly, but in its execution, it's unique. It's like a music video with not good in any kind of sense of the word, very insane posse like stuff. There is no story here, aside that here are some hip hop Latinos who go on a killing spree and in the end they die, and the whole thing is made of some kind of very low quality video clip. It's not good, but it's unique. And there is the invitation, which in its entirety it's bad. It's but cut off the first half. Cut off the first half and watch the second half. I say then it's kinda okay low budget stuff. The first half is unnecessary entirely. Now on the fifth disc, Before I Die, I would say there are plenty of anthology films, like 5 or 6 amongst the 50. This is the only anthology film that I would say works. Every segment and even the frame has some kind of setting and payoff, a war story, has some gore, has some cinematic going for it, and it's not just another anthology has a segment which there's a guy, a girl comes to it, and he uh, hits it to her on the head and eats her intestines. It's not a story. It's not even a snuff film because the production quality, the gore is missing. It's really just ketchup. So I can't work with that. But Before I Die is fine. And there is Terror Tools. As I said, there are some more professionally made stuff amongst these 50. Terror Tools is okay, it's the trauma of the trauma, but and it's entirely empty. There is no story or anything going for it, but it has, on the very basic level, it can use a camera, it has something on the screen, and it's not the sporty VHS quality, so they have a professional equipment. So that's about it. And This Darkness is again one of the religious movies, which until 4/5 of the movie it kind of works. Then it just says Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I, I'm not interested in that. Disc 6 is nothing to talk about it. Aside maybe the last Tales of Terror, it's well, again watchable but has no substance. So it's kinda hard to rate it because you see it could be a okay film, but why bother? Disc 7 is the good stuff. Matthew is a serial killer movie. It starts off as a pretty standard slasher, and it has good quality gore for its low budget. The acting doesn't bother me. Then it starts a bigger movie in its for the rest of it, like the second and third of it. Uh, Goes a bit psychological, and it's really working the motivation, how this is a character, not just a slasher villain, and how the girl overcomes him because there is a girl he doesn't kill. I say it's a good working movie with twists and production quality and settings, and Escalation. I love escalation. The the Shannon house. I'm not sure about it. There are like three interwoven, at least by the editing, stories in it, and maybe it has an overall plot. So I will watch it again and make hard notes. What is what? Why is it happening? But there is one subplot, or whatever you want to call it, and it is Eric Zahn, the music of Eric Zahn. So don't bother with the other plots and just watch those segments. And it is a very good adaptation of the music of Eric Zahn from H.P. Lovecraft. Really, fine. Then there is Suburban Sasquatch. Watch Possum's review about it. It's I can't go better than that. It's really so bad it's good, Birdemic-like quality movie. And by the way, I managed to contact the director, and there is a sequel in production. It's not dropped. There is a work film about the suburban Sasquatch on YouTube, so watch that also if you want. A good work film. And there is Vampire Hunter, the last film on disc 7, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It is a micro budget stuff, maybe low budget. I'm sorry. It is some vampire artist studio, vampires working in some art studio, and you have this protagonist, which is a who is a martial artist and an artist who wants to work with this art exhibition, but it turns out it's a vampire, and so they fight. It is very American Ninja quality. It's very mind-bogglingly. The guy has 20 nunchucks, and they do a lot of weapon fighting with all kinds of weapons. Ninja stars, pole arms, uh, quarter stuff, and three-part stuff, and all kind of crazy stuff. And he's a legit martial artist. You can see it in the movie. All kinds of good stuff. And it's never boring. It goes and crazy stuff after crazy stuff. It's just two location, and I love it. It needs some recognition. Seriously, someone should upload it on YouTube or something. Then there is disc 8. Nothing to talk about it, unfortunately. I said prehistoric bimbos in Armageddon City. The only thing you have to know about it, it's inaudible. You can't understand what is going on, and you need that information because the production quality is abysmal. It's really LARPing quality acting and production value and whatnot, and that's really problematic. And when the group starts as a three-member party, then in the next shot they are 5, and in the next shot they are 4. I need the information from the subtitles, which these discs lack, because the movies are so compressed and so low quality, not so in the original, that there is no space for it. And as far as I can tell, there was never subtitles for prehistoric bimbos, and we need that. And there was some kind of flicks which the poster is some gas mask people, and they were running around in gas mask all the way, and it's really boring and like maybe I can find it because it's like more than 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. I was not planning to talk about it because it's really that bad. The whale, maybe? Gas mask, people in gas mask run around in a zombie infested city, and it's very much ripping off the Resident Evil franchise. And you can't understand what they are talking unless you uh, up the volume on your headphone, on your computer, and in your uh, video player, but then you can decipher what is going on, and there is like 3 lines in the entire movie uh, which tells you the story, what is going on. So you need that information to get something out of the movie. And prehistoric bimbos would need the same, but your only hope would be subtitles, but it doesn't exist. So, disc 9, Off the Beaten Path, is a working, though Blair Witch Project ripoff, but it's work. It is working. I see people who are into uh, these kind of movies, this fan footage stuff. They don't won't like the third-person camera perspective at occasion, but it was needed to make the film work. In some aspect, it works way better than Blair Witch. They spend a good portion of the time in what in Blair Witch was the House of Rustin Parr. I really liked the first Blair Witch Volume 1 video game for it. And they spend time in the village and reaching to the village. It's a way better setup, and they communicate with the locals. That part is better. What is not that much is the time spent in the woods, because they don't go 10 meters further from their cars, and somewhere they lose their cars. That part is worse. But it worked for me. And I don't like Blair Witch Project. But because it's much more like a traditional movie, I it worked for me. I was able to sit through it, and not just because I paid for it. So, Off the Beaten Path is you get your money's worth. Disc 10 is really abysmal. The Witching is really the homemade movie. There's nothing for it, going for it. It's not even Mark Polonial level stuff. Even Mark Polonia's really young, really early works when he was 12 or 15. Those feel more like a real movie material than this, The Witching. And there is the blood-sucking base from Burbank. It is the highest budget stuff uh, in this collection. 250,000 spent on it in 2007, and it's just bad. It's it has no coherency. It has no gore. It one of the gore scenes is they actually used rope as intestine. 250,000 budget. They have like 2 locations. One is in the woods, and one is in some backyard. The story makes no sense. Acting is below porn quality. Disc 11 is the only thing I can mention is good, and Hollywood Vampire was made by the same person and they are the same movie. And they are bad. Now, disc 12, and at this point, if you are really binging through this 50, the last time you had something good is disc 7, and disc 8, 9, 10, 11, aside the disc 9's Blair Witch ripoff. Off the beaten path, I think it was. You can look up early in the video. You have nothing going for it, and you really had some bad uh, stuff you're running into. That $250,000 budget movie is just really puts it down. And then you have disc 12, the last disc. So you have disclosure. You know you don't have to suffer more, even if all these are bad. And what is going for it is not the last movie. The Crate is bad. Its setting does not work. It not follows what it sets up. It not follows its own rules. And if it does not follow its own rules, what it has, because it is a micro budget stuff, so it really needs to follow its own rules. It wouldn't be bad if it would follow its own rules, but the script is not finished. The other three movies, for some reason, uh, the collection added Tochi's Dominion, Tochi's Goblin. They didn't add Tochi's Edgar Allan Poe's Madhouse. The movie actually can be found on IMDb as Madhouse, but the full title in the movie, on the title card, is Edgar Allan Poe's Madhouse. So all of these three movies are from Tochi. He had another 2-3 films among the collection. Don't want to go back and look for it. These three is a mini collection for him, and these are not bad. I would say even they are good. It's a good collection for a micro budget filmmaker. Uh, Goblin is his best title according to the general audience, the recognition. It is on YouTube for free if you want to look it. I say it's the worst quality from these three. It's convoluted. You see, the budget got in the way. It's not that chiseled. And I really noticed that sometimes the budget gets in the way of making a film. So, as a filmmaker, you have to really pay attention that you don't fall into that trap. But Dominion and Madhouse things are going for it. They are coherent, the production quality is consistent, uh, they they have a setup, payoff, and for its budget, a good quality stuff on the screen to go for. Dominion, if I remember correctly, some vampire schlock, and the Madhouse is some zombie schlock. But it's really, these are the films I was expecting to find in this collection, and not like what was sorry again, like the first disc had Nightmare Asylum, the third film of it. Uh, that was made in a horror house, like London's dungeon. That's a really good horror place to visit. That has person Lisa running around in this labyrinth infested with cannibals. And the basic premise, what is set up at the very beginning of the movie, is that Lisa wants to get out of this dungeon, but the camera work and the limitations and everything soon recognize that this setup won't work, and you as the audience falls out from the suspension of disbelief because every second minute you are shown an exit door. If you are looking for the exit, why don't you go through the exit? And the movie falls apart from that point, and it really has no coherence and scene and whatever, and it would work on some level, even in its disjointed narrative, uh, with the setup that Lisa is looking for the exit, and no, everyone is forgot what the outside world even is, that it even exists. But you would really need uh, that working, the cinematography, the cuts, the edits, the camera work, to not show any exit sign, because that's the exit. Movie end. So there, I wouldn't even mind that people are randomly disemboweled at some random location, which has nothing to do with the story because it would create mood. But for the Todd Sheets film in the disc 12, it's going for it. Goblin has two long shots. It uh, has some things the movie forgets about it, forgets or drops, and the gore is really bad quality. And it's really was needing some nudity. A lot of films here promises you nudity, and you don't get any, and it's really a shame. But as a mini collection, 3 movie collection of Top Cheat, that works, and I stood up because of this with an okay feeling for towards this collection, the Decrepit Crypt of Nightmares, just because of it. But otherwise, the collection was needed a bit better structuring and some better picking of movies. But for what it is, I say it's a collection that worth your attention if you are really into either filmmaking or you are into what are the basics of filmmaking as a film viewer, someone who watches movies and really is not satisfied with just the A budget movies which has all the same plots since a decade or uh, even a century. The same plots, the same beats, the same everything. If you really are, you really need something even outside the very low budget stuff, grab this. Or if you really just want it for the curiosity value, it has great curiosity value, even with all the by the number low budget nonsense, which is like third or half of it. Even then, this is a good collection. And there are really some titles which I really loved it. Disc 7 is very good. The Vampire Hunter is very, very good. Uh, you get your money's worth even for $100, which I paid for the collection, plus or minus the postal fee. I I'm glad I watched this. I'm glad I have this. But really, some better pacing next.